The law of attraction. Is it real? Is it hocus pocus? Find out right here, right now on Air Brands Live.
It's on Air Brands Live at home with Devin Bravaco, Eric Cabral, Josh Terry, Jordan Fraser, and Justin Fraser. Lisa Holbert, Sarah McMillan, Chris Orsi, Jack Turkel, and Jake Resnicki.
What?
As dated as that intro feels now, I do feel emotional when I see it, and I feel energy when I see it too.
Can you first comment on what this was and is? It looked like you were like one of those like splattered bugs or something.
That is my best impression.
I love it.
Of a splattered bug on a windshield.
But as you were saying.
As I was saying, so the law of attraction is a topic that people talk about, people debate, people engage in or not. And I wanted to get everyone's opinion here as well as the audience. Please like, subscribe as usual, but also really, really, truly hope that you can add to the conversation. We want this to be an interactive experience. We want everyone to join in on the conversation. So drop something into the comments, ask questions, let us know how you think and how you feel about the law of attraction and all the other topics that we're going to be discussing today. But I wanted to address the new face in the room because you know Devin Bravaco, you know Josh Carey, and of course you may know Kieran Lenahan from a previous episode of the On Air Brands Live podcast. I can't recall, Jake, what number episode? Do you know, Kieran?
Ooh,
I don't know.
I don't remember the number.
It was months ago when we were all in studio.
I remember the phrase "shoot your shot" being in the title, I believe.
Yeah, nice. But you can find that on Air Brands podcast on iTunes and Spotify and all that good stuff. But here's the cool thing about it, folks. Kieran was probably the most, if not still today, the most downloaded episode of the podcast with like 1,500 at the last time I checked, maybe 3 months ago. And it has to be because of your dashingly good looks. And then you brought it too with content and you delivered and people were like, oh, not only is he devilishly handsome, but he's super smart.
Yeah, I do look
and I wasn't there.
Similar to you, Eric. Yeah.
It's so funny. People were like, Eric took a youth pill or something because I wasn't there that day and you crushed it.
You weren't?
No, I wasn't in the studio.
Right. Josh, it was me, you, and Lisa.
Oh, just me and Lisa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No recollection.
Yeah, that's what happens when you do too many shows. So, yeah, I wanted to jump into this topic, and then, of course, we'll take it wherever it goes. But, I just wanted to put it out there for anyone who often thinks about the law of attraction as some hocus pocus shenanigans or thinks this is absolutely critical to life and in business. And I wanted to throw this thought out there, and then you guys can take it from here. But I truly, truly believe that every thought that you think creates your reality. Literally every thought that you think creates your reality. So even things that have become, like, for example, I'm always squeezing this ball here. This was a thought. Somebody thought of this tennis ball before it existed and then put that into feelings of, I am super excited about creating this and I'm going to get other people excited about creating this thing. And then I'm going to get other people behind me to help me manifest and create this into a physical reality. That's as simple. This is everything, literally. The mic I'm talking in, the headphones that I'm listening through, the seat that I'm sitting in was a thought before it became something real. So what do you guys think about the law of attraction, how your thoughts and everything you think creates your reality?
To Kieran.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, Kieran.
All right, let's do it. Before I jump in, I do, because my wife, I'm guessing, will watch this at some point.
Yeah.
Today's our 4th-year wedding anniversary, so
Wow.
happy anniversary. Super
Congratulations.
pumped about that. Yeah,
about
thank you.
that
Great
and,
to see it.
and many other things.
I'd like to say newlyweds, but a little trivia. There is an actual number of years that qualifies you as a newlywed. Do you know what that number is?
3. I don't know.
2.
Oh.
So you're newlyweds up until 2.
You can say it for 2 years.
Yes, and then you
Although
are
we
newlyweds.
did meet someone that always spoke about his wife as his bride because he got married every year. But anyway, I
Yes.
digress.
Aw,
Yes.
Yeah.
That's cute. That's cute.
I like that.
Yes.
Cool. So law of attraction, Eric, what you're talking about, the chain of thought to feeling to action and then ultimately to result or outcome, that's really the basis of actually the work that I do as a coach working with people in business and their mindset. And so like that is a reality. Our thoughts, there's so much biological, so much psychological research that's been done on the connection of how we think creates our reality. The way that we perceive things, the narrative that we tell ourselves in our heads about what's happening around us, that colors how we feel and then in turn act. So like you're hitting on a point, we'll get more into the law of attraction specifically, but that chain of thought to feeling to action, you can see that play out. And once you start to notice it and pick up on it, you start to realize the power of it and understand, wow, there's way more in my control than I actually thought. I thought that everything happening outside of me was just completely out of my control. And so how I react to those things is just based on what I see outside. But we have so much power. I think Viktor Frankl, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, he's a survivor of the Holocaust, very famous psychologist, I believe, and has written some books. And one of his famous quotes is, between stimulus and response, there's a space, and in that space is our power to choose. And that's where we get to decide how we experience life. So there's a ton of background on him and like why that quote is even more powerful coming from him, somebody who experienced what he experienced. But yeah, so I think what you're hitting on, super important for people to understand.
Love it. And who knew? This wasn't a plant, folks. This was something that, as I was driving in, I was thinking about this and, hey, we never really broached this topic at a deeper level. And Kieran, boom, you nailed it, man. That's exactly how I feel. And it's super important. Josh, what do you think about the law of attraction, manifestation?
Well, it's really a big chunk of my life, and you're preaching to the choir here. I do think, as I'm listening to what you're saying and what's been said so far, I do acknowledge that there are different levels of what people are willing to really believe about the law of attraction. I think that an easy to grasp thing is if you're in a bad mood, that might overflow to others, and you might see others reflecting back that bad mood or energy. That might be an easy thing for people to really grasp. But then you take it further and further, and then you start getting into things like, well, really what we think about is not only what we attract and who we become, but every single moment of our day has been brought to our awareness because of the very things we've been and are thinking. So that's an example of, well, some people may be like, no, I don't know. Well, I'd feel happier if this didn't happen. Well, you're in control, really. So everything is here, as Tony Robbins likes to say, life happens for you, not to you. So just trying to give examples of different levels of acceptance of what really the law of attraction is. And, I'm a believer of all of it. And I'll go as far as this mind will allow.
Love it. Love it. Devin Bravaco.
No, I love it. I'm actually reading The Obstacle is the Way right now by Ryan Holiday, which I've read like 3 or 4 times, but I just feel like it's always like a good refresher. So reading it again. And in it, a lot of it talks about obviously businesses and how they have to kind of overcome different obstacles, and obviously individuals because it's all in your mind too. But in the beginning of one of the chapters, it talks about how a lot of people and a lot of businesses that are big Fortune 500 businesses now started during the recession, started during like the depression, started during all of these different hard times. And so it really, in a way, talks about like the law of attraction in a sense, because it's constantly like pushing and having those thoughts in your mind, like we could be successful, we can continue to keep growing. And so it's interesting because it shows you that no matter what's happening, a lot really is in your mind, and just keep kind of continuing on that path. The other thing it talked about was interesting was Thomas Edison saying how like he was never going to give up. Like you think like creating like the light bulb or creating like any kind of like famous inventor, you think that it happened overnight, but didn't. Like he needed to go through, like they said, like it was picking a needle in a haystack, and it was like he would go through each piece of hay and look through it and continuously grow. And so he went through 6,000 different times before he found the one that, you know, created what he did. And so I think to your point going, it's very important to see what's in your mind and to attract that and to know that that's what's your goal and to keep going.
Yeah, it's funny because you remind me of, well, first off, The Obstacle is the Way. Great book, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't read anymore. I listen. So I listened to that book a couple of times as well. And I love the portion at the end. If you have the audiobook, the best part of it to me is the podcast between Ryan Holiday and Tim Ferriss at the end. They have a 2.5 hour long conversation at the end of the audiobook, and they go deep, like on the creation of the book and stoicism and everything they talk about the book. But yeah, that's my favorite part. I've listened to the book a couple of times, but the podcast I've probably heard more because I was like, I love it. I just love their conversation. But you know, it's funny because Josh, what you mentioned is there's so many different layers of attraction and laws of attraction and manifestation. But the one simple one is when people, like, especially when I remember being on the dating scene a million years ago, people often, and I was one of them, saying, why am I always attracting this type of person? I'm always like, they always gravitate towards me, not realizing and understanding they're a reflection of me and who I am at that time. And that's why it's plain and simple. And we don't often think of things as the simplest way. Like we're like, it's more complicated than that. It can't be that easy. It can't be that simple.
I love that you said that. It's so true. It's so true. And I did the exact same thing. I was so broken for so long, trying to kind of figure out like what was going on and not realizing that it was all internal. And so I kept going into these relationships that were so broken. And so it's really exactly what I was putting out is what I was getting. And I'm like, but why do I get these like guys that have girlfriends or have like all these different things? Like
all these bad boys.
Me. Yeah. And so it obviously I had been going through something myself. And so I was broken, getting something broken in return. So it's so true. So true.
But it's in business and in life, it's the same thing.
Yes.
Right? I think I attracted you into my life, Devin, because of all the vibrations, all the things that I was putting out there. You know, like
Literally,
I said, every thought that you think creates your reality. And then every thought you think creates a feeling, a vibration that you put out there. Now, there's a lot of people who may not know or understand or believe in this, but it truly is a vibration, a frequency that you put out there to the universe. Right. And then they come. People, this happened to Josh and Jake and I recently where we were talking about someone and they literally responded
within
in
30
email.
minutes. Yeah. 30 minutes later. We haven't spoken about this person in months.
Here's the weird thing. I'm sure, and I'm getting chills. This happens to each and every one of us all the time. You talk about someone, you think about someone, and they text you, they call you, they reach out to you. How does that happen? Why is it we believe in things we can't see? Wi-Fi, right? We're getting all this data into our phones, into our computers. We can't see it, right? Radio, when it was invented, like people are like, how is sound coming out of that thing over there? What in fandangled, you know? But the thing is, you can't see what's coming into it. It's invisible. Why is it that we can't believe or understand that the same thing happens at our level? We're way more complicated than that piece of machinery. This brain right here is way more complex than that. So who's to say that that doesn't exist? Who's to say that when people think of you, why is it that all of a sudden you think of them? There's that this is all sort of in the same
Yeah.
universe. This is all something that people don't really comprehend. Therefore, they don't believe in it because they
Well-
can't see it, they can't touch or feel it.
Well, you want to take it a step further. We can go right into quantum physics and that
Ooh.
world. That's a whole right. Kieran, I love it. Go tell me what about
Quantum
go,
physics.
No
Go,
I need
go,
to- I need to-
professor. Yeah.
Let me grab my quantum physics textbook that I,
Yes,
I
you.
refer back to every day.
Yeah, I saw a reaction, and I'm just teeing it up for you. But no, the quantum world really, at its core, says that anything you can imagine or think or believe or conjure up in your mind not only is possible, but is already happening in a simultaneous, I don't want to say universe, but in a simultaneous time continuum here where all time is collapsed and everything is happening at the same time, has already happened, and it's all just happening now. And our job is to conjure it up, really sit with the goal or the outcome that we want, acknowledge that it's not only possible, but it's already happened. And it's our job to attract it into our awareness now, present moment. Deep, I know. Professor Lenahan, take it away.
Yeah, this topic is one that I very recently, within the last year, have really started to dive into. And there's still plenty more to learn and listen to and read. What I have found, I'll share my perspective from some of the work that I do with people. I often find that people are, like you said, have either never heard of this, never learned about it. And so their initial kind of response to it is to reject it or distance themselves from it. So when I work with people and we talk about essentially the law of attraction, I always try to meet them where they are, because it can be really hard. There can be a really big gap between wherever they are and what you just said, Josh. Because even me, someone who's been in this world, I hear that, I'm like,
It's
man,
tough.
time, thinking outside of time, my mind is I didn't study physics at all in college. This is not my stuff. But I think meeting people where they are and actually helping them take the steps along that path of your thoughts reflect your beliefs about yourself, that influences the results that you can create in the world. Let's start there. All right, from there, let's build evidence to show you that this is actually true. And then we can continue to walk along that path up to the point wherever they feel comfortable going to. Because maybe some people never make it to, all right, it's actually already happened. Time is a construct that doesn't exist. And
Exactly.
I've already achieved it. So I just need to magnetize, to magnetize it towards me. So that's it's always interesting because I love this, but I'm a super practical person. I always want to meet people where they are. So finding a way to do that is both challenging and fun.
Maybe here's the easier piece to grasp that I've gone through the past few years, and tying it into business, like Eric brought up. This isn't only about your personal life and attraction. I spent years in previous entrepreneurial pursuits, really struggling, right? Trying to keep the lights on and wondering why I'm not getting the result that I feel I should and could be getting. It's because of the person I was through the business. I was trying to, separate them and saying, well, why isn't anybody reacting? Why are people balking at my already very inexpensive prices? I mean, how much lower do I need? This is crazy. It's almost embarrassing. Yet it's because of who I was within that concept and the worth and value that I felt as a person through everything I was doing. So I just attracted more of that toxicity into my life, and it never worked. So then the light bulb was, oh, okay, I don't have to create a better product or a cheaper product or market it differently. I have to go back to this drawing board for myself. And only when I was able to do that, and the bigger picture is, spending all of my life seeking external approval, getting people or the right people to validate me and say, kid, you got it. You should come out with all this potential that you have inside. I was waiting for some gatekeeper to anoint me ready and able to do it, and I didn't make a move until I realized, wait a minute, It's me, right? I'm the one that has to come out first and say, hey guys, look what I'm capable of doing. And that's my whole shtick these days, just doing more and more of that. And miraculously, you get the result that you're looking for and you're after, i.e., you attract the very people who will then say, kid, you got it. Thanks for showing it. Everybody calls me kid. Yeah.
Josh, if you don't mind me asking, what did that actually look like on a day-to-day, like doing that work of like on yourself, of realizing it's you and then actually shifting that? Because that's,
yeah,
I think I think there's a lot that people can take away, because personally, over the last 2 months, I've been doing a ton of this work daily. And I'd love to hear a little bit of like what your experience has been, and maybe that might be helpful for some people listening.
Sure. Great topic and question. So first it became with the light bulb, which is tied into my children and me realizing that I'm the child in that relationship and I didn't want to continue to be that father for them. So that was big enough in a sense to say, okay, no more. I have to change. Now, what does that mean? What does that look like? So I had to start taking a brutally honest assessment and then make the choice to make some changes and adjustments. So both of those have to go hand in hand. I said, all right, well, let me look to see what I'm doing day in and day out that are probably not helping my cause. And some were very easy, right? And I'm sure everybody tuning in has a handful of things that are like, well, like for me, I was like, well, I probably shouldn't do that every night. That's probably not good for what I'm trying to do. And you know what? I do that pretty regularly. I could probably make the choice because I want to make better choices, and that's not helping things. So an honest assessment, the choice to make these adjustments, and then slowly but surely, I'm not going to the proverbial, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in a week gym, because we know how that winds up. So knowing that it's all about the execution there, I said, all right, one thing at a time. This is a long game, and over time, it's going to compound and build on itself. So I started saying, well, what can I tackle first? Okay, let me stop doing what I'm doing every night. And then just with that, because sometimes it's not that easy, right? Well, yeah, if it was easy, we'd all be doing it. So you have to find the reason, the motivation. For me, it was the regard for my children and not wanting to go down that path and see that outcome of if I continue down that path. So I had that big enough reason. Then I started saying, okay, well, what will allow me to keep going down this path without falling back? And it was things like meditation and breathing and reading and journaling, all the things the Miracle Morning taught me. You love the tie-in, foreshadowing. So I started just doing these things. I'm like, okay, well, if I want to change my nightly ritual that was non-serving, let me replace it with something. I got into meditation. For me, that was a life changer. That allowed me to show up and say, okay, I'm clearing my head. I get it. And then that just builds on itself, and you start seeing the reaction and the result of it. And I started seeing all these people responding positively in all the ways that I would have hoped. And I'm like, okay, this is working. I want to do more of it. I'm going to step forward. I'm going to just continue down that path.
Good stuff, man. It's very attainable if you trust in the process and trust that it will work for you. And in business and in life, there isn't a finish line per se, because we're always continuing to work on ourselves. We're always striving to be better. If you're that type of individual that wants to improve, that wants to level up. And when I found that this all ties into success, that was a game changer, adopting the abundance mindset, the go-giver concept, and always looking to help and extend a hand as opposed to asking because that is, I think, the majority of people out there, especially when, we're not taught this stuff in school. We're not taught, how to become, this type of individual that wants to succeed and wants to level up and wants to help people. I mean, the majority of people are just trying to survive and figure things out. And that's why I think a lot of our content lately has been really focused on mindset and positivity, because I absolutely think it's critical and needed, considering everything that's happening today. So if you're out there and you feel like you've hit a rut and you're getting into habits and rituals that aren't necessarily in your favor, these are sort of things that you can start to do to help you in terms of mindset, putting things around you, people around you, podcasts, shows, the proper shows. Like, watching shows is entertaining, absolutely, but if you watch too much of something, I remember watching The Sopranos, I'll date myself, and binging, and then coming to work and talking like Tony Soprano. Why is that? Because like he was in my head all the time. He was always talking, and then I would be like, "Hey, yeah." I'm like, why do I sound like this? I'm like, because all I do is watch and listen to this all the time. It's the same thing. Now I just flipped it. Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, Les Brown, all these wonderful people in my head every morning is very, very, very helpful for me. And if you can find a way and someone that can do that for you, then yeah, keep doing more of it if it's helping you. Absolutely.
Do you know what the other point is? Is that you also have to start with a base and foundation of self-worth. And am I this type of person who can? Until you get over that hurdle, I fear, and Kieran, I want to hear your point on this too, right? Because you work with clients in this regard. I feel that we can say this stuff and give technique and strategy and outline, but if you don't believe that you are worth attracting a better person, scenario, outcome, your version of $1 million or the purchasing of a private jet or island, whatever it is, if you can't really see yourself and deep inside know that you are worth that and that is for you, it doesn't matter what we say.
Yeah. I wish I could. If there was a button to just repeat what Josh said, I would push that button, because what you're talking about is the foundation of behavior change, which is identity. Identity is the core of really everything, in my opinion, everything that we do. And so, there are 3 levels of behavior change in the book Atomic Habits. James Clear writes about it. The external layer is outcome based. So essentially a goal, like I want to lose 50 pounds, right? That's kind of a goal that you'll set. The second layer is a process or a habit. So that might be, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week to work out. And then at the core is the foundation. And this is really, if you want to have the most success changing your behavior and changing the results ultimately that you're getting, it's at this core identity layer. And what this layer says is you actually have to believe that you are the person who is that. So instead of losing 50 pounds, going to the gym 5 days a week, I am a healthy person. When you can get that deep enough into your belief, then you're going to act in alignment with that belief, because we are like, our brains are wired to live in alignment with what we actually believe deep down, which is why, we struggle when we have doubts about ourselves, when we don't believe the best things about ourselves and struggle with self-esteem. That's why our external actions reflect that. That's why we attract other people who also see that in us. And so it starts at this belief, this identity level. So how do you actually do that? This is probably the biggest question. This is a huge struggle that people have. All right, great. I can't just say I'm a healthy person. That doesn't make me healthy, right? And this is one example. This is just an easier example to talk about. But what you have to do is to take the slow and steady game. I love what both you and Eric said, which is this is a slow game. This is not an overnight success story. That's every overnight success story you see is like, it's just a lie. That's not actually how things work. It takes building evidence and showing yourself reasons why you can believe that you are a healthy person. So what would a healthy person do? Would they
Exactly.
choose to go to the gym, or would they choose to sleep in another hour? Well,
So
a
true.
healthy person would go to the gym. So I'm going to do that. And as soon as you start to stack some of this evidence, then you start to actually believe it. You get some momentum. And now what you're doing is just living in alignment with that thing that you know about yourself. I am a healthy person. And as you continue to do that and stay committed to it, the results are going to come over time. It won't be overnight. It's funny. I actually just put out some content about this, and it's called the plateau of latent potential. Again, James Clear. Essentially, we expect results to go like this, but it actually is more. It's kind of slow and steady. You wait, you keep sticking to it, and then later it goes up. And most people quit when they're in that dip, when they're in that valley. But if you stick with it, essentially, you're going to get to where you want to get to.
And what's that Napoleon Hill reference? 3 feet from gold? Isn't that the thing? He speaks about that or wrote a book about that, back in the 1800s, the whole gold rush, people were digging and they digging, and then they gave up, and then they sold their equipment to the next person, and they just went literally 3 feet, and there they were, now the riches. So it's the whole same analogy. Lots of analogy.
Yeah. That's good stuff, man. Kieran is clearly well versed in what this topic, which is great, because I had no idea necessarily that this was going to be like something where we can really, really dive deep into and have you expand on this stuff. Are there any examples that you can share with us of people that that you coach, or people that you've seen coached, or someone that's made it through and understand and now experiencing results?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can talk about two people. One client comes to mind, and then I can also talk about myself and my own kind of struggles and then triumph with establishing habits. So I'll give the example of my client first, and we can kind of go from there. So one client I work with, runs a real estate business, and she's been in the business for 20 years. So super well, really well experienced, good at what she does, but has struggled with habits both in her personal life and then as it relates to the business. And again, keeping on kind of a more simple topic to talk about, kind of health and wellness. And obviously there's so many correlations between how your body feels, how your brain works, and physically functioning at a good level, like at an optimal level, how that impacts the success of your business. She's been really struggling with sticking to a workout routine and sticking to eating well. And so we kind of went through that process similar to what I just talked about. She's been trying to establish this habit for years, but it never got down to that identity level. And so until we started to talk about that, until we started to uncover tell me all the evidence why you actually are a healthy person. Tell me about all the times when you have made the right choices. And we start to just stack and stack and stack the evidence and continue to bolster up that belief. And over the last 2 months, things have finally clicked. And now, we've even moved on from those. They're kind of established habits now when it comes to exercising and eating well. And now we're focused on what are the habits in your business that are going to have a similar effect on your business results. So that's kind of one example I'll share. For myself, this could be, I'm going to turn this into a course one day, but another book I would highly recommend to anybody. But I'm a Christian, and this is a book written from the Christian perspective. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Long story short, many people bounce around lives being too busy to actually think and stop and actually be present and live life the way it's supposed to be lived. And I was one of those people, both in my previous corporate role and then early on in my business. And for me, the habits of slowing down, reading the Bible, journaling, meditating, all of those things, I knew they were good things. I knew I wanted to do them, but I was just struggling to find my way over that hump and actually make them habits. And through reading that book and doing a lot of work on my own, was able to establish them as habits. And now I documented what my morning routine is. And I was like, holy crap, there's 20 little things in here that are all kind of stacked on top of each other that have all come together. I've kind of introduced them one by one. And now I have this incredible routine that gives me life that's an amazing way to start my day. And it's changed my business. It's changed everything. So, so that's an example of, again, this idea of habit formation and how that can impact everything.
Can you give us a few of those morning routine things that are the most powerful?
Yes. So daily, I'll go daily, and then I want to give one weekly because I think it's super cool.
Cool.
Daily, silence and solitude. So this can look like a lot of different things. It can be meditation. It can be walking in nature. For me, I lay down on the floor and I just pay attention to my breathing. I pay attention to just where I am, like present. Like I am on the floor in my house, in my office in North Brunswick, New Jersey. And I just try to get as present as possible to my body, to the moment, and just feel like, what does my body feel like? Where am I in life? Like, let me just literally slow things down as much as possible. Sounds kind of weird. It looks kind of weird. I'm laying down on the floor of my office, which is also my foster son's playroom. So it's got a really colorful rug, but looks really funny, but really important for me to just spend time in silence, no input, no sound, no light, just no input, and to just turn that off and allow the brain to just be. That's been really, really powerful. So I do that actually a few times throughout the day, but always, always, always in the morning before I start working. The second one is, in addition to silence and solitude, is digital, I'll call it digital dieting. Again, this is along the idea of maintaining boundaries around all of the information input, the information overload, constantly looking at screens and being bombarded with messages and information. I found that my ability to think deeply was almost non-existent because I was so surface level, bouncing from thing to thing, constantly listening, learning, reading, and no time to actually process it, think about how it applies to my life. So I put my phone, really practical example, I put my phone to bed at 9 o'clock. I don't look at it. On Sunday, I put my phone in a drawer and I check it twice a day to check text messages, and that's it. Setting boundaries around that has allowed me to just think way more clearly, and again, slow down and actually be present with the people around me, with the moment, with where I'm at in my business. And so that's super helpful. The last one I'll give is kind of a weekly one, which is it's actually observing Sabbath. So back from Judaism, is also part of Christianity and the tradition of Christianity, but it's kind of been lost in the modern world. Essentially, it's a day of completely stopping, resting, delighting in the world, everything around us, being grateful, expressing gratitude, and obviously spending time with God if that's your thing, and just really focusing on the things that are most important, not thinking about work or anything else. So this is a topic I could go on for days about. So I feel like I'm taking a lot of airtime, but those are some of the daily and weekly things that over the last 6 months have changed my life completely.
I love that. Something that we talked about too is just, when you're talking about the law of attraction and you're talking about getting your mindset right. And, we've obviously had conversations. And so for me, in my journey, I was doing so many things. And then when Justin got sober, and then I was trying to figure out how do I fix him? How do I control what's happening? Yes, he went through so much on his end, but it still was a lot on my end too. I went through, a tremendous amount, and it was a lot of ups and really, really lows. And so the biggest thing for me was my faith, and finding faith that made sense to me and how I can kind of then relate. And I feel that almost helped change my mindset, and being able to kind of turn my life over to God and say hey, please help me because I can't do this on my own. And so I think for me, it was more so knowing that I wasn't alone, and then kind of changing my mindset in many different ways to kind of understand who I was and what I needed. And it wasn't me trying to control Justin and Justin's journey. That was his journey. And so for me, it was more to find out what I needed to be better and how I could grow. And I think that was a big part of it.
Yeah, that goes right to the saying, Devin. We can't control the world, we can't control everything, but we can control how we respond to it. Mm-hmm. So when you came to the realization that, okay, I'm going to maybe release the lever or take the foot off the gas in terms of trying to control Justin and his actions, more sort of take it internally and see, how do I respond? How do I lead by example? Things like that. Even with small children in my house, I try to be very conscious of the vibrational pull or slack or whatever I'm giving off. I have to reflect and understand that, okay, whatever's happening in this room is a reflection of me and what I'm saying and what I'm doing. And Josh and I have talked about this because we have kids at the same age. And it's once you become aware of that, like your vibrational pull or attraction when you walk into a room, whether it's networking or your children's playroom, you have an effect on it, and you have to take ownership of that. And if people are coming to you because they see you as a thought leader, or they're repelled, or they don't, there's something there that you have to be aware of. And how do you make yourself aware? That's a question. There's a lot of different ways. Josh, do you have an idea about how people can sort of take audit or figure out ways to become aware of how they're giving off certain vibes?
Well, I think it comes down to the honest self assessment. Yes, you have to become aware of what's happening. And that starts with a literal choice. Okay, if you can't find the way to awareness, you have to find the way to finding the choice first, the willingness to become aware, and then say, all right, what am I doing that might be either a little off putting or a little negative or creating this chaos in my life? And it's sometimes a tough pill for some to swallow because it requires full, complete, and utter responsibility. You have to take responsibility. Did I hear a gasp when I said responsibility?
No, I was going to say, because I really like that. And something that I do personally, but also in my relationship, and it drives Justin crazy, but I don't care because it's important, as we literally do, like, it's like almost every other month or quarterly, depending kind of how we're going. But we do literally like a relationship check-in. We're like, okay, let's go down and talk about, like, how are we doing together? How are we doing individually? Is there things that like bother you that I do, and vice versa? Let's talk about it. What do we see moving forward for us? And like, yeah, I mean, for someone who doesn't usually love to talk, like, he's, a little apprehensive over it sometimes. And I'm like, no, it's important, because like, if we're not communicating and talking about this, then what do we do to move forward? And so there's certain things that, like, especially recently, have been brought to my attention that like I do that drives him crazy. And so is it easy to hear? No. And is it hard to then kind of figure out? Absolutely. It's difficult. And it's a new journey. Like, you're constantly peeling back layers and stuff. And so it's not like the best thing in the world, but at the same time, like, one, I want to grow for myself because I care about myself, and I know my, like, I want to always continue to grow. And also I want to continue to grow for him too, because we're in a relationship. And so kind of what you're saying, Josh, it's just important. It's important to check in. It's important to understand each other in a different way, and to sit down and, like, how many times do you really have a conversation and you sit down and say, like, hey, let's actually talk about it? Not just like check in, like, you good? Everything's good? Everyone's good today, right? Everyone's happy. Life seems great lately, but like, is it really? And so that's something that, like, we really, we check in on, and we check in, like, on our faith. Like, how is our faith, like, enhancing? How is our faith brought into our relationship? Like, what can we do to bring God closer to us as a couple? And a lot of it is, us being honest with, like, ourselves, and honest with, like, our true feelings in our relationship. And that's hard, because sometimes you're like, hey, this isn't working, or something's not working. And it's hard, especially after everything Justin and I have been through in our journey, which you guys all know. It gets to a point that, like, some people, like, the odds were against us for so long to, like, actually stay together. And from canceling a wedding to staying, like, him, like, getting sober and then getting out, and us trying to revisit life as, like, a new couple, that so many people didn't agree to. And people were like, why are you still together? Why are and so it's just important for us to kind of take that and to continue to grow with it, because we have grown individually and together from it.
I love that. And what I want to give to the audience and any of the viewers that resonated with what you said, because I think the direct tool that we use and I use, and we do this in business, and I started to incorporate it into my personal life, and Jake knows I love talking about this, is when we do one-on-ones in our business, is we have the first thing that we say to each other is, okay, what this the start, stop, and continue. What are the things that I would love for you to start doing? What are some of the things that I would love for you to stop doing? And what are some of the things that I would love for you to continue doing in this relationship? Because it's all a relationship. And when I realized that that was working in business and with my partners, I was like, why am I not doing this at home? So then I started doing it with my wife, and we started saying, start, stop, and continue. We put it on the calendar, literally put it on the calendar. I don't call it a one-on-one, but we do a family audit, and it's that doesn't sound sexy either.
Yeah, you took a
Miss
step back there.
Cabral. Come here,
Yeah,
Miss
Mr. Brown, come
Cabral.
here. Please take your pen and pad and take notes.
Join me in the study.
Yeah. Put the hot lights on. But yeah, it's really all a process, and we're always continuing. It's all about conversation and openness, vulnerability. We incorporate that in business and then bring it into life, or vice versa. Either way, that's a tool that anyone can begin using. That's very, very helpful for us and for me. Do you guys have any other tools? I'm sure, Kieran, you have tools for your business and your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually gonna ask if I could throw this out there, and I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't even at least share that this exists, and this is something that I can help people with. So in the program that I went through to become certified, I actually learned the skill set of coaching and helping people on this, because awareness is the door that you walk through to be able to do any of this mindset work, right? Awareness is step one. There's an assessment that I can walk through with people that literally will walk through what is the typical mindset that you approach life with in any situation, really. So it'll give you kind of your average under normal circumstances, and then also under stress. What does it look like? Because we respond differently. Our mindset goes to different places when we're in normal, like everything's fine, and then under stress. And I took it. It's been crazy illuminating for me. And it's something that I do with my clients as well, just to bring to the surface. All right, where are we starting from? At the bottom, kind of at the first level would be the whole idea that everything happens to me, everything's outside of my control, right? And then as you continue to step up these different levels, you then become willing and able to recognize, oh, I actually do have control, the power to choose my thoughts, and then those thoughts lead to the feelings, which lead to my results. So it's an assessment. The assessment itself costs me to give out, but I would actually love to just offer it to literally anybody in the On Air Brands community at cost. Like, I don't need to make any money off of it. I just think if people can be more aware of their mindset and the approach that they're taking to everyday things and their businesses, the world will be a dramatically better place.
I love that.
So what do we do? How do we access this? How do we take the next steps?
Do it now.
Sign me up.
Yeah, no, I would love to do it with you guys. Let's set up time. I can send you the assessment itself. You can do it online. And then what we can do is just spend an hour to 90 minutes and debrief it and just get really deep into, like, how does this actually show up in your life? What does that look like when you go to this place or when you're under stress? And then once you become aware, that's the springboard for being able to make change. Perfect. Yeah. So if you or anybody else is interested, just reach out to me. I'm sure I'll be tagged. Reach out to me on Facebook or email or whatever. Would be happy to do that with as many people as possible. It's a very, very cool tool.
That's great. And we have John Paul Kilduff tuning in regarding something you said earlier. He was commenting on your phone having a bedtime. He said, "Time to go night Siri." While that's a nice way to put it, I've been doing something similar, and there is value to it, because you realize once you give the awareness to how you communicate and interact with your phone, it takes over. Like, you instinctually, habitually, always, consistently reach for it. Even if every we're just, we just do it. We just do it. We're all guilty of it. So if you can, all right, you say 9 o'clock, whatever it is, put it away. Stop. The thing I do is in the morning. I make sure I have it on do not disturb. So like by 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm up at 6. So for the first few hours, there's no reason for me to go on that phone.
Yeah.
I love that. And it's so true. Eric always says, and one part is like a compliment and the other part is like, I have to do better at it. But Eric's always like, you answer emails so fast. And even if you're not like online, you always get back to everyone. And it's true. And it like, I try so hard to do that. And then on the other side, half the time I'm like, with family answering email because like in my head, I'm like, no, I need to respond. And so yes, I need to get better at kind of putting my phone away and just kind of being in the moment and enjoying. But I do answer emails really fast. It's like a hard, I go back and forth.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Where's the balance?
Yeah.
That's part of the reason, Devin. I know it's the opposite on my side. You're like, you're always so hard to get a hold of. Well, it is because I put my phone to bed. I try to be conscious of it. I try to spend time with the family when I need to. And, this is all, like you said, it's work in progress. We're always trying to be better. We're always trying to improve. It's funny because the phones were basically designed, the apps were basically designed for us to be addicted to them, right? So that's a given. I think everybody understands that, right? It hits on endorphins, and when we get addicted to the feelings, and we need to go back for more, especially when we get reactions and positive reactions. But what are ways that we can combat that? And exactly like Kieran said, we have to be aware first that this is something that I'm addicted to. And then what are the steps that I need to do now that I'm aware of it to modify that habit? And how do I sort of distance myself from that stimulus? Well, you literally can distance yourself. Put your phone in the drawer or shut it off, put it in airplane mode so that you're not constantly. That's another thing that I learned, Devin, was turning off my notifications. So that's why I don't respond a lot, because I turn notifications off on all my apps and my watch, because it's a distraction, right? If I'm in the moment, I'm with my kids and I'm having a good time, and all of a sudden my watch is like, hey, pay attention, or my phone, then, I mean, I still could get better. I'm always looking at my phone, I feel, and there's got to be a way to continue, and I'm going to implement some of the stuff you're saying, Kieran, because it's a constant battle to do that and not be attached. It really feels like a fifth limb, having this phone in our lives now, whereas before we were tethered to the desk. When I get to work is when I'll do my work. Now it's like you do your work all the time. It's made us more productive, but it's also altered our lifestyle to the point where now we're slaves to work. We're slaves to the phone and the people. So there's good and bad, and we just have to be very conscious of it so that we're not ruled by content and the addictive qualities of the apps and the platforms and all these things. But so we're coming to the final few minutes of the show, and I wanted to talk about what's happening on Friday, Devin. Is that okay?
Yeah, please. Like how you asked me permission.
I do. I need you. That's why I have you in my life. So Reinventing Your Life is Kathy Sharp's book, and she is the keynote speaker for our event, and she's going to be talking about all of those things that she talks about with corporate clients, with professional businesses that are always leveling up, and how to improve first yourself and then your business. So reinvent your life, finding the things within your life that you can start to recognize as things that I want to tap into. So for example, I read an excerpt from her book recently, and it said, especially during these times, I think this is valid. Why don't we tap into the things that inspired us as children? Why is it that as we get older, we sort of get away from that childlike curiosity and re-engage those things and those ideas and those concepts, those dreams that we had to be a guitar player or to be a singer or to climb this mountain or do whatever it is? We have to remember this is who we are, and this is what drives us, and the passions that used to inspire us, re-engaging with those things. So I'm really, really excited about Kathy Sharp Ross coming to our event on Friday at PodMax. Did I mention PodMax? I don't even know if I mentioned it. But it's at PodMax Global, which is our virtual event that Devin basically runs the show, and Jake. And they put us all together in the room, and we experience this wonderful thing with a community that's now growing, right? We have a PodMax community, which is crazy, a tribe of people that are all like-minded and sort of speak this same language. And we really come to the table vulnerable, completely open. And that is always the theme that I feel, Devin, that I'm going to like start the show, like say, hey, folks, in order for today to be successful for you and for the podcast hosts and for everyone involved, is you have to be comfortable with being vulnerable, because that is why we're all here. We're all business owners trying to strive and be better and bigger. And in order to do that, you have to be open so that other people can come in and tell your story and share and help in any way, because how do they know that you're hurting in this place or there's a pain point there and you need help there? Well, in order to do that is to share it, to put it out there so that people can recognize it and apply tools to it and start to maybe connect you with other people that they know can help and figure things out with you. So really excited about Friday. PodMax is it's closed actually, but I just wanted to share with you what's happening, because we are continuing to do this hopefully every month, but the next one is in October. So we will open registration, I think, Devin, right next week probably, or that Friday. Oh, so register. Wow. Oh, there's the announcement. Registration is going to open, I guess, right after PodMax, which ends at 5 this Friday. So it will be open. The floodgates were open last time when we did this, right after the event. A large portion, maybe half or more, came right back to the event and signed up for this one on Friday. And I didn't even mention Jordan Harbinger, who is like the number one or one of the top 5 in podcasters. He's, millions of downloads per episode. He makes well over 6 figures, I think maybe 7 through podcasting. So that's crazy. I think, he does make 7 figures podcasting. So he's going to be teaching the tribe and teaching the audience about, and Kieran, I'm not 100% sure if you're making it, but he's going to share a ton about how he grows his business and his habits and all that good stuff. And hopefully, like I said, he mentions the second time he got kidnapped, which is
Never let it go.
I'm obsessed. I'm like, what happened?
No, I love that. We're super excited. And I want to add too about like being vulnerable for Friday. I think it's super important. I was talking to a friend last night about how when I first started, working with On Air Brands and you, Eric, and the team, and you guys kind of put me on this podcasting thing, and I'm like, I never did this. I don't know what I'm doing. You guys want to interview me? What are you even talking about? I was so confused, and I was so like surface level in so many different ways. And then as I kind of felt more comfortable and understanding different ways, and I was able to open up and share more of my story, and I've been able to connect with people now. And by guesting on different people's shows, people have like reached out to me via LinkedIn being like, hey, I heard your story. I want to talk to you. And like, I've made a lot of great connections through podcasting. So I think to your point, being vulnerable, being open, sharing your true self, not just like, oh, my business is amazing, it's going great. Like, okay, that sounds amazing right now, but like, has it always been successful?
Right.
Even if it's successful, I'm sure there's hard times right now, and what made you who you are today. And I think that's super important. And I feel like that's what everyone brings to the table during PodMax Global, which is really valuable because people can connect in like a different, deeper area. And I think stories, which is amazing.
Yeah, and the vulnerability, is really the whole theme of this show. Pretty much is self-awareness and being comfortable with, okay, this doesn't define me. I'm always leveling up. I'm always figuring out ways to improve myself, and there's always going to be a time. Oprah Winfrey, Tony Robbins, all these successful people are leveling up and getting to the next stage. And they have struggles. They have things that they're trying to figure out. And at that moment in time, in that chapter of their book, they're trying to figure things out. So it doesn't mean you're failing. It means that you're improving. You're figuring things out, and you're putting it out there for other people to help you, and other people that can maybe share their ideas or ways that they had solutions similar to what you're experiencing. So putting yourself out there, and I didn't realize that either, Devin, when I first started to put myself and through podcasting, and I was like always waving the success flag and like, hey, I did this, come and listen to me. And I get it, when you're trying to position yourself as a thought leader, you don't want to put out like, hey, my failures. But I slowly over time realized, as I started to gain success, I need to put the vulnerable, the failures, the trips and falls, so that I could tell people, hey, that was the pothole I tripped on. Those were the shoelaces that I didn't tie and tripped on. And do make sure you don't do what I did, or hopefully this will help you or will trigger something when you get to that point. So yeah, putting yourself out there, your failures, the lessons learned through those failures are beneficial for everyone, for you and for anyone who's looking up to you to learn and to gain the experience that you're experiencing. So any last thoughts and questions that you want to add, Kieran, Devin?
I'll add a last thought just on this topic of vulnerability. I think like the On Air Brands team as a whole, what I love is you all do such a great job at making a space and creating an environment, both like in person when that was the thing and still virtually, where people can feel comfortable being vulnerable, and you really set the tone and model that behavior, which as leaders of a community, of a tribe, like it's so important, and it's so appreciated by me, and I'm sure plenty of people within your community. So thanks for creating that space and creating that psychological safety, because that's where human connections, like, doesn't happen with small talk, like surface level stuff. It happens when we open up and actually share who we are. That's where the deep connections get formed. So I think that's a huge part of why I love being around you all. And I'm sure why your community is continuing to grow and continuing to just gain steam. So thank you guys. Love what you're doing. Continue to do it, because it's working.
Yeah. Thanks,
Well,
brother.
I do some now, so
we
I
really, we appreciate you, man, and and we love you, and we consider you family. And I want to make sure people listen to your podcast. Can you share your podcast, and then also, so who are some of the people that you may be looking for to be guests on your show as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the host of the Christian Crossroad podcast. It's basically where entrepreneurship meets following Jesus and being a Christian. So you can find that on Apple, Spotify, all the major platforms. In terms of who I'm looking for, I do a combination of interviews and some solo episodes diving deep on some topics. But if you're a Christian entrepreneur, business owner, I would love to talk to you. I'd love to have you on the show, either a bootstrapped or venture-backed startup. And then if you're an investor, that's actually someone who I'm actually looking for, would love to have on the show. If you're an investor, either real estate or within the venture world, I'd love to connect with you, have you on the show, interview you, and just pick your brain and be able to speak to my audience. So feel free to check that out.
Two huge guys that fit that model. Mr. Matt Faircloth, who's in the behind the wall over there, and then also Josh McCallum, my partner at Renault Winery. I'll make the introduction, and then they're titans in the industry, man. So that'll be a win for everyone. It'll be awesome.
And it's amazing when they talk, like they really like practice what they preach too.
Yeah,
I think is amazing.
Definitely, absolutely. Okay, folks. Well, thanks for tuning in. As usual, we'll be here again next week, every Wednesday at 11 o'clock. And we're looking forward to PodMax. Hopefully, anyone who's watching, that's coming. Can't wait to see you. And also can't wait to see the rest of you next Wednesday. See you later.
Tuned in to the On Air